The Nerd and Tie podcast is, unsurprisingly, a part of the Nerd and Tie podcast network. For most shows, from actual play to true crime to witchcraft, go to nerdandtie.com or join our community on Discord by finding an invite at nerdandtie.com/discord. Did you know that you could sponsor Nerd and Tie? That's right, for just $20, we'd say your name here. We'd talk about what a cool person you are, and maybe we'd give you a high five. Just go to nerdandtie.com, click on the sponsor information, and you can find out more information there, like a boss. Or you can contribute to our legal funds by going to gofundme.com/nerdandtie. This month on Nerd and Tie, we're talking about the AnimeTube Kickstarter, whatever the heck that was. Anime Matsuri's got some splaining to do. Nazi cosplayers, this time at IndyPopCon, doing the thing that Nazi people in Nazi uniforms do. And we give our full review of the first season of Marvel's Loki. All that plus the Vomit Hat Steve Challenge on this episode of Nerd and Tie. Welcome to Nerd and Tie, your only podcast on the internet with a dress code. I am, of course, Trey Dorn. Joining me, as always, are the splendid Genproc.
What up?
And the wondiferous Nick Izumi.
Word up.
And it sure has been an interesting month.
It's been a lot.
And we're putting this episode out a week earlier than normal. Because normally we do the last week of the month, but I'm going to be in the woods and not have access to the internet. So here's hoping nothing interesting happens in the next week.
Oh, don't worry. It will.
It always does.
Yeah. Like right after we post.
Yep.
It's the inevitable.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
We've got... oh. It's just the inevitable nature of all of this. But speaking of the inevitable nature of all of this, our first story that we're talking about this month is what the heck happened with that AnimeTube Kickstarter. So, a couple weeks ago, like 2 weeks ago, the Kickstarter launched for something called AnimeTube. Nick, you're the one who brought this to me. What the heck happened here?
Okay, so I was made aware of this when I saw some of the people who make some of the best anime like content online, like Mars Girl and Red Bard were sharing some info on it, and then I saw the head of Nozomi Entertainment make a comment, so I had to look into it. So this group started a Kickstarter for something they're calling AnimeTube, and their goal was to have an anime streaming service that addresses the issues that exist with other streaming services. And unfortunately, most of what they had for issues weren't entirely clear. They were just clear that they were going to dunk on Crunchyroll and Funimation, which, for better or for worse, there's a huge subset of weirdos on the internet who that's their main thing, is that they don't like Crunchyroll or Funimation subtitles. They accuse them of having some bias when translating. They fire Vic Mignogna for being a sex pest, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But like their stated goals, when you looked at the Kickstarter, made less and less sense. Like they wanted to have a expansive anime library so that you didn't have to go between different streaming platforms to watch all the anime you want. Are you guys already seeing why this probably isn't going to work?
Yeah.
Well, good luck with that.
Uh-huh. And like they posted a list. This was they posted a list of shows they wanted on the platform, Not shows they had the rights to.
Yeah.
Shows they wanted on the platform, and that was really where they got in trouble. Like, I think they had a $50,000 goal. They raised $100,000, but it was the president of Nozomi Entertainment and also WriteStuff.com who was quick to point out, hey, there's a lot of shows that my company has the rights to on your list. You are not in talks with me.
Yeah.
Why are you saying that you are? And magnificently, sorry, there's just so much here. When they were asked about it, the people running the Kickstarter waffled between, well, we only want to answer questions that are asked in good faith. We don't want to engage with trolls, which is still not a good, in my opinion, still not a good method, especially when you're very publicly asking for people's money.
Yeah.
But also, then they started coming up with this really bizarre, makes sense only if you live in an alternate universe excuse, like, oh, well, we're not worried about that. The anime industry in America says that shows are expensive to license, but we've been talking to the Japanese directly.
Yeah, they claimed they were talking to the Association of Japanese Animations, the AJA, although they accidentally called them the Association of Japanese Animators, which is not their name. But
Which
that's
is
like
not their name.
it's not a licensing organization; it's a trade group.
Uh-huh.
And they claimed they had a meeting with the AJA. Who knows if that actually happened?
They had so many lies. It's and amazingly, like in the upper tiers of the Kickstarter, there's still next to no explanation of how they would organize all these titles that they didn't have the rights to, or how or since they wanted it to be free with ads, a thing that Crunchyroll already does, like how they're going to be able to afford like keeping that up, because video hosting is a terrible expense.
Like, even if they combined the libraries of Funimation, Crunchyroll, everything on Hulu, everything on Netflix, all the anime that's currently out on these streaming services, and even the ones that aren't, like, that's a lot of data.
That's a lot of data, but also like, remember, like, there's a reason that there are Netflix exclusive shows.
Right.
Like,
well, okay, and so here's some fun stuff. Anime News Network wrote an article about this, and so I'm just going to quote their article because Anime News Network posts. So the campaign is being run by GameFace LLC in Austin, Texas. The company describes itself as a, quote, mobile applications development studio with over 10 years of mobile application development experience. We've produced over a dozen mobile applications on the Windows 10 and Xbox One platforms with an average rating of 4.7 out of 5 stars, end quote. GameFace's official website lists Soundhead, quote, as one of its previous apps. The app's name is identical to an app which was pulled from the Microsoft Store last year, although the Kickstarter page makes no claim of association. However, the previous app, which pulled anime video from multiple sources, including unauthorized YouTube uploads, was published by a company called Aeon Enterprises LLC. Both GameFace and Aeon Enterprises share the same registered address. Whether the team, it's and so it looks like they had an app on the Microsoft Store that was pulling pirated anime off the internet, not on a server they owned, to which is probably why they're not in jail. But it is why their app got pulled. So it's and they in a quote to Anime News Network, they said they never hosted any content on their own servers at any point in time, nor do we upload any of the content to YouTube. And it's just like, it's just this amazing thing that like these guys are so like they're opportunists. I really want to know what their end goal was, because like you're raising money on a public platform like Kickstarter, and it's what happened was is that after like within a week of this blowing up on the news is that Kickstarter pulled the Kickstarter, and right now if you try to go to the campaign, you'll get a notice from Kickstarter saying it's subject of an intellectual property dispute and is currently unavailable. So the Kickstarter has pulled the campaign. So they haven't gotten a dime from this. The Kickstarter generated no actual money, even though like people like signed up to contribute to it because Kickstarter killed the campaign before any payout could happen.
Thank God.
Like, what was their plan? Like, this is the amazing thing is it's like, so either, like, clearly these guys have enough experience in software development where they've gotten stuff out there into people's hands, and they knew that they had released an app that officially, that like, at least ostensibly seems to have been pulling down pirated stuff off of other people's servers. And they were going to then raise money on a very public platform like Kickstarter to create a service that they were going to charge. They're taking money for a service for something that they didn't have the rights to. Like, and if you're gonna go and run a for money piracy website, you don't go on Kickstarter. And if you are gonna go legitimate, you make the negotiations first. You know, it's, you talk about like the anime industry, and it's like, it's been around. The anime industry started with, you know, college students pretending to have big companies talking to Japanese companies on the phone, but they did it legally. Like, you know, there's a joke about how ADV pulled their name out of a hat pretty much, because they needed the name for the company. But like these guys, like you have to do the licenses first.
Yeah, you can't just go, oh, I'm going to do this, and then again, like some of the shows I had listed, you know, B-Stars.
Yeah.
Netflix does it. That's not just exclusively streaming on Netflix. Watch the credits. Netflix paid for that show. Like, they co-produced it. They're not gonna just let any other platform have it.
Exactly. It's just so.
It's, if you're gonna rip people off, why choose this like insanely convoluted route?
Well, and it wasn't even their first. They had this is their second campaign. They had a failed campaign that happened about a month beforehand, that didn't reach its goal. It is incredibly difficult to run a video streaming website. Like,
and prohibitively expensive.
Yeah, it's the cost of like content delivery networks and like the server costs, like, and it's less than it used to be, like with the existence of Amazon's like servers and things like that. And you know, I can think of at least, you know, one micro streaming site that's pretty terrible, but like even that's got enough, like it makes that awful site look very professional, because that awful site I'm thinking of is everything is fully licensed. And like this is like what were they like? That's like, I feel like this is something that like a dumb teenager would try.
Right?
Yeah.
20, but I feel like it's something a dumb teenager would have tried 20 years ago.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, the best part, I didn't even mention the funniest part when we were going through all that, because there is a very funny add-on to this shenaniganery. One of their stretch goals, which the Kickstarter did take the time to explain, they didn't take the time to explain, you know, like how they were going to organize this or how they were going to get the rights to this expansive thing of shows, but they sure went into the AI anime girl who would be like the virtual assistant within the app. They went hard on that.
Yeah.
AI anime girl virtual assistant, you know, like a very, you know, a reasonable thing to focus on and want to, you know, spend your money on, obviously.
Yeah.
Just
so
nothing. I got nothing.
Yeah, no. It's
nope.
Yeah.
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 I'm just like, it's just, I think it's really all we can say. Like, we're just, it's speechless. I'm just speechless because
Really, yeah.
it's just such a terrible idea, and it's a terrible idea done publicly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, it was a bad idea in the first place, but they really leaned into it. They made it as bad as they could make it, and I don't respect that. I'm I'm glad that it got pulled, but I'm frustrated that there were people dumb enough to fall for it, let alone bring it like double their goal. Because
I mean, you work in customer service and you learn people can be stupider and stupider and stupider.
I mean, yeah, that's fair, and to an extent, I get not wanting there to be a monopoly of who licenses and distributes anime,
I mean,
but
I can see how
Right.
like a lot of us are frustrated at, streaming services in general and just like how many there are, and if you want to watch everything, you need to have like 15 different services. Yeah, I get that. I get wanting to like consolidate things and make it like cheap, affordable and
But things like,
available.
right, but also things like copyright law exist.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
you got that, and then half these people who are upset are people who are upset because actual Japan doesn't fit the anti SJW utopia that they made up in their head.
Mhm.
And so like you get these people who throw a hissy fit at Zombieland Saga for having a trans character in it, and then somehow convince themselves that Crunchyroll made up the subtitles and that it's not what's happening on screen.
Yeah.
Or like, because that's where a lot of the people supporting this
It sure
this
seems to
stupidity
me
are.
like if these people really want to experience anime in the Japanese, they should just learn Japanese.
Right?
But
That's
Yeah.
exactly what I was thinking.
like,
It
Go
is
for it.
if you don't want some
Have fun.
translator, if you don't want some translator localizing the dialogue in a way that makes sense in English, and you just want that raw Japanese experience, go pick up a textbook, man, my man. Go.
I hate to say this. I don't want to belittle it too much, and I mean, shout out to a lot of my friends who are speakers or translators, but it seems like the people who get most vocal about disagreeing with official translations are people who don't speak a goddamn word of Japanese.
Agreed.
Yeah, agreed.
Agreed. I see that all the time.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because there are people who have no idea what goes into localizing or translating something.
Mm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
because localization is more than translation.
Yes.
It's
And sometimes literal translation is just bad.
right. That's why localization's an important part.
Well, especially with Japanese, because the grammar structure is completely different.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it's not part of the
Like-
Indo-European language family.
Like, if they did a direct translation, it'd be all jumbled up, and you wouldn't be able to understand it in the first place. Like, come on, people.
These people are not linguists. They are not.
No. Nope.
Yeah.
Like,
It's a clown show. It's a
Yep.
clown show. Speaking of clown shows,
Oh,
Anime
nice
Matsuri. Anime Matsuri just
Uh.
happened recently.
So
And
terrible.
that sure was. You know what? Here's the thing with Anime Matsuri. Was I shocked at the disorganization or the things not happening on schedule or Vic Mignogna being there? No. It's
No.
Anime Matsuri. It's
Yeah.
it was seeing a lot of photos of people unmasked and all of that, and just it's a bad we don't talk about conventions a lot these days sometimes that are happening because we have a policy not to promote conventions that are happening, right? So we didn't like do
Mhm.
this thing like saying don't go to Anime Matsuri, blah blah blah, because it's conventionally impacting. No, I don't want to remind people that it's happening. Like of course Vic Mignogna's there.
Because he's definitely not doing any voice work anytime soon.
Well, and it's not like Anime Matsuri's leadership hasn't had their own issues.
Yeah.
Or that there wasn't an article in the Houston Chronicle about the sexual harassment controversy 2 years ago. Or anything. I don't know what you're talking about. Anyways, is that 2 years ago or was that 3 years ago? I don't know. God, how old? It's one of those things where time, man, it collapses and compresses.
Plus, we had a whole year that doesn't feel like it counts last year, so.
It was 3 years ago. The article I'm thinking about, the Houston Chronicle, was from 3 years ago. That's
God.
how, yeah. Anyways. And there are a lot of things to complain about this year. Obviously, like the Artist Alley just being like a frickin', hike. But the reason why some of us are talking about Anime Matsuri is because something really weird. So this guy Langdon Alger, at least is his Facebook name, made this post on July 7th, which is just bizarre. So he put in a couple of FOIA requests, and so Houston First, which owns the GRB Convention Center, is a joint public-private corporation, and in Texas that means they're subject to FOIA requests. So this guy emailed Houston First and cost about $8, but got records on some Anime Matsuri stuff. You see,
oh God,
in Anime Matsuri's contract with the GRB Convention Center, they have to pay a fee for every single ticket sold, with an exception for $1,500 for staff and guest tickets, right? Ticket numbers. So Anime Matsuri. So we have like some rough estimates on how many people Anime Matsuri told their convention center attended. Anime Matsuri also publishes their own statistics on their website. If you go to 2020.animematsuri.com/stats-and-growth, you can actually get like they've got breakdowns of attendance, and so Anime Matsuri claims in 2019 to have had 43,000 attendees. Okay?
Okay.
Now, they don't have the exact numbers broken down on... they pay between $5 and $10 per attendee to the convention center. And they have a line item for a total amount in their in this paperwork. Now, the line item amount was $29,000, and according to the paperwork, it's a ticket surcharge fee of $5 to $10. So $29,000, 43,000 attendees, according to their own numbers. Now, if you do the math at the most generous of like $5 per attendee, that's still under 6,000 attendees in 2019 that they paid the convention center for, unless I'm reading this wrong. But yeah, so if they're paying $5 to $10 per attendee to the convention center, if they are, that can only be like 6,000. If they're even paying $1 per attendee to the convention center, that's still 29,000, which is not 43,000.
No.
Yeah, that's
so one of two things is happening here. Either Anime Matsuri is underreporting their numbers to the convention center, or Anime Matsuri is inflating their public attendee counts.
Both of which are not good.
Right.
I'd say neither is a great look.
Neither is great.
And I will include a link to the public post. Like, again, these are all, I have not confirmed this paperwork myself. I have not ordered my own copy. I will put a link in the show notes to the post, which includes the breakdowns of these numbers. But holy shit.
Yeah.
Yee.
Yeah, that's about it.
There are allegedly lawsuits in Harris County, Texas, against Matsuri for non-payment.
Oof.
Like, there's just like a whole bunch of financial wonkiness here. At least those are the allegations that people put forward, and I'm inclined to believe them.
Yeah.
It's
With this evidence.
I think that importantly that like it really does seem like either like, because when they report these numbers out as their totals, they don't break it down by day. They just break down the demographics by men and by women. It does seem a little weird to me that their 2019 numbers add up to exactly 43,000. According to their number, like, it's,
Yeah.
that seems oddly coincidental, but technically, statistically, that is possible. It's
Mhm.
that number is as possible as any other number to land exactly on, and it's not like any other year in their records that they have published show like an exact even number like that. But still, I'm like, what is either like? Yeah, it's just so suspicious.
It's so suspicious, and yet I'm not surprised at all.
Not surprised in the late.
I was about to say, yeah,
Like, yes. It's like, of course they'd be doing something like this.
Oh. Yeah.
I am shocked. Absolutely shocked. I know with their did I hear that right, that they're going to have Manana's lawyers like as guests at some point, or
I don't know if they're. I know other there's a convention in Canada that I know brought them. Like, a couple of cons have done that.
that's really gross.
That's really gross.
Like,
yes. And shows that you're really freaking desperate for guests. Wow.
Well,
or you have really bad taste in people. Could be
Yeah.
both.
it's I mean, so here's the thing. There are a category of people who don't think that Manana did anything wrong.
Oh, that's
And
right.
You got to remember those people exist, but also, frankly,
Don't want to.
it's well, okay. So here's the thing. There is they see it as profitable in the short term to invite him as a guest, because he's got right now a rabid fan base that is willing to put up with anything. They see
You're not wrong.
the money. They see it as money.
Yeah.
I hate that you're right, but you are right.
Yeah.
And right now, the Vic Mignogna stands there's enough of them where you can, like, they've turned themselves into like this anti-SJW icon. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, they have aligned themselves behind the creep, and there's this outrage industry that's kind of bound up around it, and it's just, they see it as money, and I don't think they understand it's going to hurt them in the long term, because as Vic Mignogna fades more into obscurity, his fans, these anti-SJW guys, like, they're going to like look for fresher waters, but the people who are bothered by Vic Mignogna and don't want to support a harasser are going to remember the people who did.
Yep.
And the fact is that the anime community is going to be around longer than Vic Mignogna's relevance, and
Yep.
these conventions will eventually see a decline over time.
And it's true.
And I think and I wonder, like, so while there are a category of people who are hungry to go back to conventions, obviously, I also wonder how many people are reconsidering going back to conventions at all right now, because we have like a lot of us haven't gone to cons since, like, my last con was January of 2020.
Yep.
It's been a year and a half since I went to a convention, and I'm like, the next convention I go to will be the one that I'm the convention director of, because full disclosure, I'm the convention director for No Brand Con right now. I recently resumed that position a few months ago, and I'm gonna go to my con, but
Yeah, no, that's legit.
but that's the only thing getting me. That's probably that's the motivation to finally get me out the door. I think a lot of people have, like, over the last year been like, "Oh, is my life better without it?" It's like, "Oh, look, I can just like actually talk to my friends independently of conventions."
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's yeah,
No, it makes sense.
we won't forget. We
We
won't
won't forget. No.
So, with Anime Matsuri on the mind, I don't remember, but like 3 years ago, there was that whole thing with Anime Matsuri with a Nazi walking around the convention.
Don't you love it? Keeps popping up, doesn't it?
And we wrote an article called "Dear Congoers of America, Stop Wearing Nazi Uniforms." Well, looks like we got to trot out that advice, because not at Anime Matsuri, but instead at IndyPopCon, a convention that also decided to run. There was so this guy who's I don't know if it's his real name or not, but his Facebook account is Skylar Wire. He showed up at IndyPopCon in a full Nazi uniform. He claimed it was a Dr. Edward Richtofen cosplay from Call of Duty Zombies, but if you look at a photo of the actual character and you look at a photo of this guy's cosplay, it's not that uniform. This guy, which means this guy already had a Nazi uniform.
Ugh.
So anyways, yeah, he's taken down the post where he posted that he did it, but some of us have screenshots. IndyPopCon has, to their credit, when they spotted the guy, made him take off the Nazi armband, and have stated that they are updating their policies, where they are officially banning this kind of thing. They're officially banning Nazi uniforms or anything like that going forward.
Yay.
Better late than never.
An appropriate response.
Because technically what he was doing was not in violation of their pre-existing policies. I argue that it violates hate speech and harassment policies, but it is true that even my convention has now, after the Anime Matsuri incident, we instituted a policy to ban Nazi uniforms explicitly. And if you go back to our article on the Stop Wearing Nazi Uniforms article that we posted back in 2018, there's an example set of verbiage which has been adopted that we wrote and put out for cons wanting to ban. A handful of other conventions have adopted, if not exactly what we wrote, what we wrote with only minor modification. Yeah, it's like, don't dress up as a Nazi.
No.
There are only two kinds of people who put on Nazi uniforms and go to conventions. There are actual Nazis, and then the other kind of person claims they're doing it to be quote unquote edgy or trolling to get a reaction, and that's just as harmful.
It's just as bad. Yeah.
Yeah. Because if you think making people feel threatened is hilarious, you are in fact a bad person.
Yeah,
Yes.
And
that's
frankly,
not.
if you're comfortable putting on a symbol of mass genocide as a joke, you're probably at least a little bit a Nazi.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just
Eh,
saying.
It's true. You can't tolerate this crap, and it doesn't even. I don't.
Yeah, it's. Yeah.
I don't even know. Like it's just such a. I cannot imagine. And I've met people who are that dense, and I can't imagine being that dense. I guess. Like I can't imagine encouraging that kind of behavior. Uh, it,
Yeah.
it just doesn't click with me, and I'm taking back to it. I know I've mentioned this before. There was one convention whose policy was if you're going to wear a historical military uniform, you have to have documentation proving that you were a member of the unit whose uniform you're wearing.
Yeah.
Oh.
And I liked that policy because it meant that if you wanted to wear a Nazi uniform, you had to come to the convention staff and say, "I am a literal Nazi." And like a few years ago, that I feel like that worked well. I don't think that would work as well anymore,
No, it's
unfortunately.
you have to
It's
outright ban it. It's the fact is that
Mhm.
there are actual Nazis out there. Like there are
There have been
American.
actual Nazis out there for a while. It's just we've chosen not to actually
Well,
take it seriously, and then the
well,
last
I also
yeah.
feel like when I used to spot someone in a Nazi uniform like 15 years ago at a con or something like that. I didn't like it then either, and I thought it
No.
was offensive. But I always feel like there was a little like they did more work to like you could actually believe that the person was doing it because of a cosplay.
Mm.
Like it would be an actual accurate representation of a character from a thing. Like
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, if it's gonna be like a character, usually, and I'm not gonna say like all the time because I don't know. I'm not into military genre of like pretty much anything. Um, but like usually there's a few differences in the uniform where you can pretty clearly see
yeah,
that like, oh, it's not a real Nazi uniform. It's
right. And
from a thing.
yeah, and I don't like it even when it's like a modified thing. I don't like
No.
people
No, I'm
doing.
still
Yeah, it's because
ugh,
look in
uncomfortable.
an ideal world it would be easy to separate fictional characters who wear these items from real world events, but like in the current like actual political climate we exist in, where like I've I've been in line somewhere behind a guy with like SS tattoos on his neck and felt in danger in my actual real life as
Mm-hmm.
frankly, as a queer person who lives who's been living in rural areas, or at least on the edge of rural areas for most of my adult life. um we don't live in a world where you can make that separation. And like even if you don't think you're a Nazi yourself and you just want to do it for the lulz, like what you're doing is you're encouraging the people who actually are dangerous and violent to feel that
Mhm.
it's okay for them to be more open and
Yep.
for them to do something about it. So it's like you are actively endangering people when you wear this stuff.
And you're shielding the bad people. Because that's
Yeah.
the thing. So long as there are one of the most helpful people to bad actors, especially in nerd communities, are the people who are willing to throw themselves up as shields for like actual white supremacists because you're willing to buy their bullcrap and say, well, I'm not a white supremacist. Like that's ridiculous. And then it just encourages the actual white supremacists to just repeat the same crap you're saying, and before we know it, we can't tell the difference between you two because it turns out you weren't actually that principled against the white supremacists in the first place.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Uh,
there's an old German saying that if you see 5 people sitting at a table with a Nazi, or you're seeing 6 Nazis. I probably got the numbers wrong. KOR fans probably gonna write me.
We got it.
But yeah, I mean,
I cannot believe we're still, especially now, we're still having this conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's bullshit.
It is.
Don't dress
But
up
I'm
like
glad-
a Nazi.
No, don't heckin' do it. But I'm very glad and proud of IndyPopCon for like having the response they did.
Yeah, I'm not super glad that they ran a convention, but
No, but
like
at least they
I'll admit,
did
I
the
have friends who
decent
went.
thing.
I have friends who were
Oh.
fully vaccinated who went, and I don't know if I would have been willing to do that. But
Yeah, I don't know either. But I'm glad they're like taking the decent way about it,
yeah,
Yeah.
because
No,
there are
agreed.
plenty of conventions that we know of that would not.
yeah, there
It
are.
hurts because you're right.
So
Anyways, I don't really have a good transition to move us on to the next part of the show,
let's see.
which is
I mean, at least it doesn't really deal about Nazis.
yeah, no, wrong
It
part of
does
the
deal with
MCU.
terrible people, though.
Yeah, and people in brown shirts. Anyways, Loki.
Here's our bad transition. Woo! Just
Well-
jump cut.
Last episode we talked about the beginning of Loki, but now the entire series has aired, so now we're going to talk about all of our thoughts on the whole season of Loki.
And I'm here.
And Gen's actually watched it this time.
I
I was about
actually
to
watched
say-
it this time.
I've actually watched it
And-
because last episode I had not watched any of it yet.
And yeah, it's in fact we delayed beginning recording of
fun
this
fact.
episode so Gen could finish watching the last episode.
Yeah. And do you want to hear my TLDR real quick?
Yes.
I'm very confused, but I'm enjoying the heck out of it.
I can get behind that.
That's pretty like for the entire thing going each episode. I'm just like I have no idea what's going on, but boy is it fun.
Yeah.
I don't have any like I haven't read any of the Loki comics. I
Oh,
don't know.
You don't need to have
Yeah,
read
it's
any of
it's
them.
very much doing its own thing.
like
Oh,
it's-
okay.
Yeah, it's so like
I don't have any context for like
Sylvie-
most of the stuff.
Sylvie is kind of like half based off of the second Enchantress, and also half based off of regular Loki,
Mhm.
and then it's you get. I can't even begin. Like it's. I don't want to get too spoilery
Mhm.
for the ending, especially. It's. I will say the show is. This is the first Marvel series that is getting a second season.
Yeah.
which is-
Good.
Well,
Kinda
and
needs
I
it.
thought it was leading up to the next Doctor Strange movie.
It is.
Okay.
I was gonna say I think a lot of people are still feeling that.
It is.
Yeah.
It's
That
it's
that makes a lot more that makes it have a little bit more context and a little bit more sense.
so and also the character at the end, a without giving spoiler away, a variant of that character is the confirmed villain in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania.
Aha. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Excellent. It's all coming together.
Yeah, it really looks like they're doing. It really looks like the MCU is headed towards. I didn't put Black Widow on the list. We should probably mention Black Widow.
I haven't seen it yet.
Me neither. So.
I have. It's good.
Okay. Good.
The entire, it's the entire thing takes place prior to Endgame, so it like
Okay.
you start off post Civil War. Yeah, it's effectively what happens to Natasha between Civil War and Endgame, and it's setting up a new character, like the Yelena character, who's another character who was Black Widow in the comics.
Cool.
Because we all know the end of Natasha's story. But you've seen Falcon Winter Soldier though, right?
Nope.
You have, Nick, though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have.
I know.
Yeah.
So it really looks like they're setting up two different directions with the MCU going forward into this phase, and that is the multiverse stuff, which we're getting out of WandaVision and Loki, and that's going into Doctor Strange, and then simultaneously getting like this Dark Avengers thing, which we got out of Falcon Winter Soldier, and then Black Widow, and that looks like it's going to go into the Hawkeye series. And those are kind of the two main plot threads that are coming out of the MCU right now. And this falls straight into the multiverse.
Oh, for
Loki,
sure.
Loki, yeah, it's I don't for anyone who does I don't want to spoil too much about the ending. So we can't really talk about like that performance in that last episode by that one character who I'm not naming, nor am I naming the actor, because if you Googled the actor, you would figure out what was happening.
Yep.
I'll say this much, and I know I kind of touched on this last episode, but I just kind of want to say it again. I think Tom Hiddleston's an excellent actor.
Yeah.
I really enjoy him in things. I do not care for Loki. I don't like the character in the slightest. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I regularly told people after watching Infinity War, well, at least Loki's dead. That's a bright spot.
Wow.
I do not care
for
this character.
Wow.
So that is saying a lot that I really enjoyed this show.
Wow.
I enjoyed the hell out of this show.
Because I
that's huge.
I really like the character a
yeah,
lot.
me too.
He's a genocidal, narcissistic piece of garbage, and he deserved to die miserably, just like he did.
No.
If anything, Thanos was too merciful.
My God, what are you talking about?
I'm talking about the literal first thing we see him do in the movies is plan the genocide of frost giants. Then the next movie we see him, he kills more people in 2 days than Jack the Ripper did in his entire career. All
right. So we're not gonna. So Avengers, the argument, what's supposed to be happening in Avengers is that he's under the influence. I'm not talking about the frost giant thing. In Avengers, he's supposed to be under the influence of the Mind Stone, the same way that like when the Mind Stone is in the lab, all the Avengers start fighting with each other under the influence of being around it, so it's drawing out the worst qualities in him. Loki's entire arc is that he's desperate to feel loved, and he's trying to do anything to prove himself to feel it, because Odin was a shitty father.
No, I agree with that, but that doesn't make up for I don't know, gaslighting your dad and leaving him on another planet so you can steal his throne, gaslighting your brother into thinking that you're dead.
I'm not saying you should want to hang out with him. I'm saying I really like him as he's a complex character.
The thing is, when your first thing you do is plan a genocide, I don't care how complex you are. You're a genocide planner.
Because he's been raised to think that the frost giants are monsters. He's raised, Odin was so bad at this.
I'm not saying Odin isn't partly at fault, but literal first thing out of the gate, that's not a great way to start off a character if you want me to like them in the long run. You have to put forth effort to get a redemption. If you do something that bad, redemption requires real effort. And
is that not what he's trying to do now?
That's why
that's what he's trying to do now, and that's also what he was trying to do in Ragnarok, like with the alternate version of the character.
Yeah.
And the Dark World,
I like the version in the TV show. I really do. I don't really care for the character in the movies. I
don't see a significant difference
fundamentally
between
terrible person, and people keep giving him chances for no good reason. I
mean, part of part of the point of the series is that every time he tries to be a better person, they consider the timeline splits as a variant and they kill him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I get that.
And also then he finally
understand the show.
He finally but the mainline Loki in Ragnarok had finally reached that point of becoming that better person, and that's when he dies at Thanos' hands. So like the entire point of the Loki is destined to cause havoc, and then when he finally like finds anything redeeming, he dies. In like that's the whole point of like fighting against it.
No, I understand the show.
Yeah.
But
well, it's not
you're
just the
looking
show.
at
That's
it from contextualized from the current show. I had no reason to think the Mind Stone, for example, had any influence.
Oh, that's not just from the show. That's been Marvel's like official position in explanations for stuff for a long time.
Is it ever stated in the films? Is it even implied in the movie? I never got that implication from the movie.
That was their official statement after Joss Whedon fucked up the character in Avengers. Because if you watch these movies,
now you're going into another thing that I hate, which is making excuses for bad storytelling.
Well, no, because his
fact.
characterization in the movie, his appearance before that, and his appearance after that are much more consistent with each other than Avengers, and so it's been, that's yeah. Anyways, we like Loki.
I really did like the show. It had very Douglas Adams vibes.
It's a good show. Nick and I are never going to agree about mainline MCU Loki, and we're apparently going to have a fight about it. So look forward to that the next time we're at a convention as we just wrestle it out. Nick's in better shape, but I've got better reach. They've got youth, I've got experience. Just to touch briefly on Black Widow, it's good. It's exactly what you expect. Don't expect the most amazing cinematic experience you've ever seen, but there's some neat stuff, and the acting's, good, and there's neat action scenes, and really feels like a second Black Widow movie to a first Black Widow movie we never got.
Oh, I will turn back to Loki for one last parting thought. And I'll try to make it spoilerless as possible, but I really hope jet skis happen.
Right?
Same.
Right. We never got a jet ski payoff. I don't think that's a spoiler to say we never get a jet ski payoff.
I want the jet ski payoff.
Where's my goddamn jet ski payoff? I waited through all those credits and didn't even get a jet ski payoff.
There's something that's moderate spoilery, but I do kind of want to talk about that made me very happy, aside from how Douglas Adams flavored everything was. You know what? Disney Plus has put up posters like on social media. You've probably seen them by now. I loved seeing Richard E. Grant just a regular human man wearing the Jack Kirby costume.
Oh yeah.
Like we're not even like an actual human person wearing a Jack Kirby illustration, not a made realistic or stylized.
Oh no, it's
straight up Jack
pure
Kirby
right
clothes.
out of the comics.
Like I love that. It's one of my favorite things in these TV shows so far is that they've been just leaning into silly comic book costumes, but that was one of the best things for me, was just seeing a real human man, and on top of that, a character actor I really like, just straight up wearing...
He's the Schalke doctor.
Yeah. And Allegiant General Pride for... No. I liked that movie.
What movie?
Rise of Skywalker.
Oh, I forgot he was in that.
I can't forget. I thought
you liked Rise of Skywalker.
I think it's an okay movie.
It is. It's not good.
It's not especially good, but I will take it over literally any of the prequels
you
or
know
the
what?
pilot film for the pilot film of Clone Wars any day.
Here, I'll say
Like,
this. I will take it over Revenge of the Sith any day.
yeah,
But
don't get me wrong, it's a messy movie, and I'm very frustrated with some of the choices.
me saying
but-
that, I hate Revenge of the Sith. That's my least favorite Star Wars movie that I've seen. I've never seen the Clone Wars movie, so I can't make a comment on that.
You're not missing anything
I didn't
because
think I was.
it's flavored a lot more like the bad episodes of Clone Wars than it is the good episodes. I mean, it introduces Ahsoka. That's something.
Yeah.
It's not enough something though.
I never watched the Clone Wars, or I never watched any of the animated shows. So like my experience is mostly my only experience with Ahsoka is The Mandalorian.
Oh, she has a fantastic arc between
Oh yeah, no, I
not
believe
just
you.
the seasons but the shows. She's an excellent character.
I believe you.
One of my favorites,
I just haven't
actually.
sat down and watched it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, and like real talk, season one has its gems, but it is a slog. Because there's a lot of really bad episodes in season 1 of Clone Wars. And even season 2. Once
Yeah.
they get to Mandalore, though, show kind of picks up, and just avoid the Jar Jar episodes and you're pretty good.
all right. With that, we should probably move on to the last portion of our show, which is, of course, the Vomit Hat Steve Challenge. Now, the Vomit Hat Steve Challenge is the part of every episode where I read a line out of a book, and the challenge to you, the listeners, is to guess what book I'm reading from. If you guess correctly, you get included in the Hall of Awesome. The benefits of the Hall of Awesome are as follows. 1, we put your name on a buried page on our website. 2, we read your name out loud on every episode of the show. And 3, there is no 3. Why do people keep asking for a 3? Why is there this thing in our language where we demand a third thing? The current members of the Hall of Awesome are as follows. Arkamai Zero, Ren Incenti, Shizu McDaniel, Krista, Slithery Shameless Otaku, The Random Ramblings Van, Corfan, Capito, Chris Graham, Lulusaurus, Paper Godzilla, Kavzi, The Minnesota Librarian, Sean Orange, Keith Shizuo, Sakura Sunset, Joel Kreisman, Patrick Delahanty, Wonderland Hearts, and Megsy Sass Council. I've been reading from the same book for a while, and I think I'm going to put it on a shelf and grab something else. I don't.
Sweet.
I'm tired of it. None of you are guessing.
Guess better.
I spent like a
Jeez.
year on that book, I think. So let's see here. Here's the line from the book. You'll have to start as a Lance Constable, but a man of your talents ought to make it to Sergeant within a year. If you know what book that's from, go to nerdandtie.com/contact, click on the Form Me form, tell us, and we'll include you. Or if you feel like writing in, we actually, when we get mailbag entries, we actually do a mailbag section here. So you can actually fill out the form there or on the official Nerd and Tie podcast show page, contact forms on both, and just write into us and tell us your thoughts, your hopes, your dreams, your reasons that you think Nick is wrong about the character of Loki. I'm sure there are many of you who have.
I know there are many of
Who
you,
knows
but guess what?
who
I'm
agrees
used
with
to this
me.
because I have better opinions than most people.
Nick is wrong. All right.
No, I'm pretty sure I'm right.
That's what every wrong person says.
Please write to me to tell me why I should feel so sorry for the guy who tried to genocide an entire planet. I really want to hear it. Tell me your justification. I want to hear it. It'll be great.
Yeah. Anyways, just give us your hopes, your thoughts, your dreams, your wishes, your reasons to just tell Nick he's wrong. All right. Tell Nick they're wrong. Tell Nick they are wrong. All right. Anyways, this is probably where we should start running for the hills.
Yep.
I'm Trey Dorn.
I'm getting proc.
And I'm right.
Okay then.
All right. Well, anyways, you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, on Google Podcasts, on Spotify, just anywhere your little heart desires, as long as you do. And consider leaving us a rating on Apple Podcasts, because that will help juice us in the algorithm on a lot of different websites. So that helps. You can also follow us on social media. We are on Twitter at Nerd and Tie. We're on Tumblr at nerdandtie.tumblr.com. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/nerdandtie. Remember, you can support the show fiscally by sponsoring it, or you can donate to our legal fund at gofundme.com/nerdandtie. And if you want to just support us on our own, Gen's got a Etsy store, Ocelot Dude Designs, where they sell neat stuff. Nick and I both have Patreons. Nick, their Patreon is patreon.com/nickazumi. My Patreon is patreon.com/TREGORN. And remember, in your heart, in your hopes, in your dreams, in the places where you can't see at night, remember, we're part of a network. And being part of a network means we're connected. We're connected to you. We're connected in your heart, in your mind, in your soul, but also to other shows on the network. That's a segue to a plug, like, I don't know, like The Meat Grinder. The Meat Grinder is a 9-episode limited series, actual play series, starring all three of us from this show, along with Kyle Johnson from Stormwood and Associates, and then first season has Scott Logan and Krista C., also players. And it's an actual play show where everybody dies all the time. And the final episode of this first season is going up on August 15th. So, like, you can find out what happens. You can just go sit down and binge the whole season pretty soon, and you should listen to that. And you can find all that at nerdandtie.com/meatgrinder, and it's super fun. Right?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So with that, in your hearts and your minds and your soul, and the places that you don't think about at night when you're trying to go to sleep and you know that the darkness is lurking there, looking harder than ever, just remember, we're here for you. We are the ones in the darkness. Nick, say your catchphrase.
Keep on sparking in the free world.
Yeah. And if you don't, they're coming for you.
Also, Loki Gator, best Gator.
Agreed.
I don't know. Maybe you thought that gator was too genocidal.
I don't know that the gator tried to kill an entire planet.